At 11 on Channel 2 News.
President Bush pledges support of the European sanctions against Yugoslavia. And Magic Johnson's warning on AIDS is starting to hit home. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. It has been largely overshadowed by the sour economic news back home and the national shock over Magic Johnson. But President Bush wound up a swing through Europe today, and he did so with a pledge to join the European effort to end the civil war that's been raging for months now in Yugoslavia. Our White House correspondent Susan Spencer has our report from The Hague.
Addressing European community leaders in The Hague, President Bush today threw wholehearted U.S. support behind their desperate efforts to stop the fighting in Yugoslavia, saying the United States would join EC economic sanctions imposed yesterday and the suspension of all except humanitarian assistance.
And we urge all parties to stop the violence, to seek through peaceful means an immediate end to the suffering.
The violence and the suffering go on. More than 1,700 people have died since June, when Serbian rebels and the army moved to stop Croatian independence. 12 ceasefire agreements sponsored by the European community lie in tatters. The historic city of Dubrovnik was said today to be reverberating with explosions. In its action yesterday, the European community leaders also called on the United Nations to impose an oil embargo on Yugoslavia, but all this could take months to have an impact.
Well, I'm not sure how effective sanctions by themselves will be. I don't think anybody can predict with any accuracy that sanctions alone will solve the problem.
The president warned that Yugoslavia shows how nationalism can split a country into civil war. How well these sanctions work may well show whether the newly energized European community has any real power to stop it. Susan Spencer, CBS News, The Hague.
And in a surprising turnaround, Serbia late today appealed for UN peacekeeping troops to man a buffer zone between Serbian and Croatian forces. There was heavy fighting today in the besieged Croatian town of Vukovar. That's on the Serbian border. Vukovar's military commander was quoted as saying the town is now on the brink of falling. There was more unrest reported today in the Soviet Union. 4 gunmen from a breakaway Muslim region of the Russian Republic hijacked an airliner to Turkey. 4 hours later, the plane left Turkey for the region's capital. Hijackers and passengers still on board. The hijackers are protesting a crackdown by the Russian President Boris Yeltsin. The birthplace of the Bolshevik Revolution this week has been hosting a visitor from the past, one who also wants a role in the future. Anthony Mason now with that story.
Old Leningrad used the anniversary of the revolution to celebrate everything that revolution overthrew. The restoration of the city's czarist name, St. Petersburg, and the arrival of the exiled czarist heir, Grand Duke Vladimir Romanov. Born in Finland, resident of France, set foot in Russia for the first time this week with, he said,
extreme joy, pleasure to be back in one's own country, which one never see. And that's something which I don't think anybody can really explain.
Cousin of the last Tsar, Nicholas II, who was forced to abdicate in 1917 and later shot with his family, the Grand Duke asked at a press conference in St. Petersburg for a moment of silence for his murdered ancestors. He came by invitation of the city's mayor at a time almost as turbulent for his mother Russia. The 74-year-old monarch in waiting believes he still has a role to play here, an umpire, he suggested, in political disputes. But many people in St. Petersburg who spent their holiday weekend waiting in food lines didn't have much use for another czar. He has the right to come and see his motherland, she says. Let him come, he says, but it's not going to help. Still, some could not help craning their necks for a glimpse of this curiosity called the Grand Duke. Maybe he would not be czar, but the return of the Romanovs again reminded Russians that in these uncertain times, anything can happen. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Moscow.
For the first time in 2 years, the government of Hong Kong forcibly returned Vietnamese refugees to Hanoi today. Police dragged some of the 59 Vietnamese kicking and screaming onto the plane in Hong Kong. Vietnam says they will not be punished. 60,000 boat people are living in Hong Kong refugee camps now. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, the National Weather Service heads into a colder than usual winter with fewer than usual satellites, and the Great British Fox Hunt scandal. Critics say the tradition of riding to the hounds may be about to stop.
All across America, people are throwing in the towel. The scrub brush, the rubber gloves, and refusing to wash all their dishes before they wash their dishes. They're turning off their faucets and turning on the Maytag Jet Clean dishwasher that scrubs with 47 powerful jets, filters, then disposes. It's made to get dishes clean, no strings attached. Or a repairman. The Jet Clean dishwasher from Maytag, the dependability people.
He's back. This time we get him.
STP gas treatment cleans intake valves and fuel injectors to help engines run better. STP, the edge.
Hey, give up. What's with all the exercise?
Oh, I just want to let everyone know that Sunsweet prune juice isn't just a delicious change of pace.
Oh, well, that explains it.
Sunsweet's a great natural source of energy.
Good. You're gonna need it.
Thank you.
Dean Witter believed in priorities.
Know why your clients are saving. Know why they're investing.
Okay, come on, folks.
At some point, it's college. Later on, retirement. But Dean Witter knows that often the highest priorities are all the things that happen in between.
Is there anything else you want?
Just the first dance.
There are many ways to measure success.
We measure success one investor at a time.
Basketball legend Magic Johnson has launched his new career as an AIDS activist, and virtually overnight he has raised public awareness about the disease like no one before him. Jim Stewart now with more.
Magic Johnson began spreading the word this weekend, and healthcare officials around the world hope the audience was at last listening.
I want everybody to practice safe sex, and that's using condoms and be aware of what's going on.
The outpouring of affection appears to have stunned even the Magic Man.
Nothing has changed other than I've become a spokesman for this virus and that I'm retiring.
Retired from a team that clearly fills his absence. The Lakers dropped a game last night that was never close, one that produced more get-well cards for Magic than memorable plays. But there is no getting well from AIDS just yet. There's been more progress made in preventing the disease than in curing it, and perhaps nowhere has progress been greater than in screening the nation's blood supply, the business of the American Association of Blood Banks meeting this weekend in Baltimore. Johnson's announcement had this gathering buzzing and telephones at their local blood banks ringing off the hook.
5 years ago, every time AIDS was in the news, the blood supply was looked at as being unsafe. I think the message in 1991 is when AIDS gets in the news, the blood supply can be shown to be safe.
So safe, say blood bank leaders, that in more than 20 million transfusions, only 20 cases of AIDS have been documented. The far more dangerous culprit at the moment, and the one that snared the most popular player of his time, is unsafe sex.
But I came on just to let the people know what time it is, and please get your thinking caps on and put that cap on down there, and then everything will be all right.
An endorsement that already appears to be having results.
From this last Thursday, I see the cell is increased a little bit.
People are becoming more informed about the disease, and they're more careful now.
But how much longer things can be all right for Magic Johnson is unclear, say medical specialists. Several years, maybe more, maybe less. But for his fans, the hurt and pain are now. And now is when Johnson's message is being heard the loudest. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Baltimore.
A leading expert on heart disease says that America is losing its lead in heart research to scientists from overseas. Dr. Michael Rosen said today the American Heart Association blames the federal government for not spending enough money. Well, the Bulldogs of Encina High in California did not play football today. The entire team has been benched, and instead of hitting the field, they'll now hit the books. Jerry Bowen reports.
It looked and sounded like the ritual rally before the big football game. But this week's Pep Fest at Encina High in Sacramento, California was really part of a lesson about the game of life, about taking your knocks and getting up again. A lesson for a lot of people in a lot of places.
What are these